welcome back to the Coast Over Academy YouTube channel. My name's Bart. Today we're doing another lap guide in the iRacing Formula iR-04 and we're at Fuji. Let's get into the hot lap. Okay, so now we have the world's longest run down the main straight at Fuji, which is going to be a complete slipstream fest in this car. You'll probably be able to overtake somebody and then have them overtake you back in the same straight, so it should be interesting. Okay, so the first corner appears as a fairly standard hairpin. I do find with turn one at Fuji, for whatever reason, it's one of those corners that it only sneaks up on you, like you don't realize it's coming, maybe because it's kind of blind to where the apex is exactly, as it's where this bollard is over here. It's a little bit tricky to see when you're driving, but yeah, just be aware that the corner is actually coming up, and for braking references, pretty much at the start of this curve on the left, see that's where I hit the brakes. So that's very useful for us here in this car. Really hard hit of the brakes, down to second gear from sixth. All in a straight line, pretty much. You can see I did the last gear change as I'm rolling in towards the inside curb. Fairly standard stuff here for a hairpin. You know, you just really want to be super efficient on the brakes, hold the brake pressure until you turn to the corner. The only thing I would say about this corner in particular is you have to be in quite early. If you over push the entry here, you get really punished because it's off camber. So it's super important to get as much of the car over the inside curve as possible like this. I have an early throttle pickup, so everything just happens a little bit early compared to some other hairpins, I'd say. So I'm already half throttle here. As we go past the bollard on the right, quite quickly up to full throttle. Let the car run out. Just so you're aware, you won't get an off track unless you get all your tires over the red and white. So you can run wider than this, but in this car, it's not faster to. There's a few bumps further down this curbing you can't really see, and also the way the curbing is it kind of slows down, stalls this car on the exit because it's so low and so light. So I find it's better just to run. You can see I just ran outside the curbing here, and then quickly bring it across and try and shorten the distance as much as possible. Generally, you're just holding the lock on the Yallen corner exit. You can see in the bottom left here. I just kind of hold the lock on, and then bring it over to the right, just shorten the distance to the next corner. Okay, so second corner coming up now. Fifth gear, really soft brake. Really soft brake, and that's how you're going to carry speed into here, so down no gears at all. Very important here, we maximize the entry to a high-speed corner like this. Use all the curbing on the right, and you got that 50 board as a reference for braking and turning in. Pretty much happening at the same time. Braking and turning, just for the 50 board. Aim for this bollard. If you cut it a bit too much, you will get a little penalty. But aim basically to have your left wheels go right up next to the bollard is kind of what you're aiming for here. But you can cut the curb and get away with it as well. It's only really if you go your all your tires over the curb that you'll get in trouble. So you can see really soft brake from me, carrying heaps of speed and then pick up the throttle as you reach the inside curb, as the car kind of hooks up on that curbing. And then you'll force yourself wide. And here, track limits, as long as you have a tire on the curbing, you're okay. Even this really aggressive, jagged red curbing, you'll be okay. The problem is in this car, if you go that wide, it kind of bounces and gets upset on the curb, and it's hard to bring it back because you have to bring it back to the track before the curb ends. Otherwise, you will get off track anyway. So it doesn't really work in this car. So you can see I'm just using all the curb, but I only just make it back to the white line, so it's barely legal in the end. So be aware of that, because this curb does upset the car quite a bit. But we still it's still worth trying to extend the track as much as possible, just because that previous corner is just all about carrying as much speed as possible. So it's this really, really long right-hand corner. The main thing I found here in this car is you don't want to hug the inside white line too much. You want to try and get about a car width to 2 car widths. You can see it's about 1.5 car widths wide of the inside white line on the beginning of this corner, which is it's tricky if you don't know the track, because it just all looks the same. It's just this constant radius corner that just keeps turning and turning and turning. But with practice, you'll get the hang of it. So definitely try and go left a little bit on the exit of this left-hander, just to widen up the right hand that's coming up. So we're still sitting wide. Don't really go any wider than this. You can see there's kind of a bit of a darker patch on the track. If you go any further left, it feels like you go off the rubbered part of the track and there's no real grip. So it's about as wide as you want to run. And as you turn in here, the car will start to understeer about now, kind of at the sharpest point of the corner. And that's when you'll have to lift. As soon as you feel like the front starts to push and you've got some understeer, start lifting out the throttle. And then the front should grip as you go back up the hill. And so you can go back onto the throttle again. Really aiming to meet this inside kind of grated runoff area here is a really good reference in this service road. Try and meet that. It also helped turn the car a little bit as well. So you can see back to full throttle now. Trying to get it over as quickly as I can back to the right-hand side of the track, because we've got quite an important left-hand corner coming out with a long exit. All the way back to the right-hand side. Only just make it. It's quite tricky there. So with the fixed setup, you'll be having a lot of understeer through this right, but it's definitely important here not to push the exit too much and end up too wide. It's more important to make sure you're getting back to the right-hand side of the track first and then start pushing the exit of this corner. So over to the right-hand side of the track, down to third gear, and trying to get on the inside as much as possible, all the way up to the sausage curb. If you hit the sausage curb, it will upset you a bit, but yeah, the general rule here is we're going to get as tight as possible without hitting the sausage curb. It's not a super hard brake, as you'll find it unsells the car quite a bit. So you just kind of slow it down a little bit with a medium sort of brake, then bleed off quite quickly into the corner, rolling lots of speed, early throttle pickup. And then really smooth on the steering. Don't scrub the tires to make sure you don't hold the steering lock on. You come out of the steering. And once again, technically you're legal as long as you have a tire in the red and white. But I find if you go much wider than this, then the car just loses time on the bumps. Okay, so now we just keep the car on the right-hand side of the track, trying to shorten the distance as much as possible to the next braking zone. Okay, and make sure you've got the car straight with the white line going into this hairpin. And it's a bit of a tricky one because there's no braking markers that you'd normally have for a hairpin like this, so it's quite difficult to be consistent. It's going to take practice, and it's just one of those things that you have to become familiar with the track. You can't rely on things like the shadow of this Dunlop board on the right here, because that's going to move based on what track time conditions you get and all sorts of cloud cover and things like that in iRacing, so you can't really rely on that. You can rely on the object itself though, and roughly you're going to be braking after it, and you have got these braking boards on the inside. They're a little bit tricky to see, but they're good enough. So just after the 100-meter board, kind of about 80 meters from the corner, I would say, is where we're hitting the brakes. I think it's tricky to see if you don't have triple screens, but this change in coloring on the wall on the right, white into the yellow of the Dunlop, that's a good reference as well to roughly work out where you should be braking to start with. But really important here that we're looking towards the apex and looking not super early in, either looking around this curve. Braking a straight line, very similar braking to turn one, very, very similar. Down to second gear, just holding a lot of pressure. Then as you turn in, bleed off. You can see we just turn in, kind of up this off-camber crest. The car's going to understeer a little bit here. You can go a little bit tighter than this, but generally if you go tighter and hit this orange sausage curve on the inside, it upsets the car a little bit. So it doesn't really make a huge difference if you get any tighter than this. Hey, quickly back to throttle here. Quite tricky this next section. You'll be forced to lift here, so you can't really delay throttle enough in a way that's quick to be full throttle through this next left. So you want to... My best advice for this section is to roll quite a bit of speed through this right, and you end up facing quite square in a way that helps open up the exit for the next left-hander. And it should just be a part lift here through the left. Again, that'll help turn the car, put the steering lock on in the middle of the corner. You can use a lot of steering here. And we want to use the curve up to this. You can see there's a ridged bit of the curb on the inside that kind of angles up. That won't really help you too much, but if you go up all the way up to that bit of the red and white curbing, that's ideal. And then that should let the car run out. If you pick up the throttle, force the car out to the right-hand side, you can use all the curbing up to the sausage curb, which really upsets it. And then you'll be at quite a strange angle here, pointing towards that mountain. And this is kind of where you want to be pointing, because if you're too far the other way, it's hard sometimes to get all the way back to the white line for the next corner coming up, because we've got an uphill right-hander. So for this next corner, again, really important to use all the curbing on entry. I wouldn't, same as the last corner, I wouldn't use like this inclined ridged part of the curb, just the normal flatter part. The earlier you can be over to this curve, the better, because the way it curves, if you're late, you'll be pointing the wrong direction for this corner. So if you get over early to use all the space for the entry, it'll really help the angle into the corner as well. Down one gear into third, really soft brake here, really soft. Just to help turn the car, really, to get the car in. Early throttle pickup. As soon as you feel like you've got the car turned in well, straight back on the power, and you want to use this curve as much as possible. I find this curve in particular on the lap really hooks the car up. And this is also a corner where if you're late, you get really punished for it. It's best to be on the early side, if anything, because of the way the kind of uphill, off-camber nature of it. So making sure we're in early throttle, hooked up on that curb. Again, force the car out to the edge of this sausage, where the sausage curving is here. Now we're pointing out this way towards these marshals. Again, quite tricky corner, very tricky left-hand corner coming up here. And you're never really going to be straight for this braking zone. As much as you may try, it's never really going to happen. So that's why I think it's really important as soon as you come out of this right-hand corner, rather than hugging the curbing on all the way around the left here, don't get sucked into that. Try and point out, just so we can get those few meters, those few car widths to help open up the next corner. Okay, then you start turning right. Oh, sorry, left. Then you start turning left up the hill, keeping the car to the right as much as you can. If you go any further right than this, I find that the track kind of drops away and you lose a bit of grip. Also, you kind of spend too much time then going to the right, and it doesn't really help you open up the corner. So you can see there's not really a direct reference for this is where you have to brake, because we're not going in a straight line. We're constantly under load through here. The only thing I would say for braking for this corner is I really encourage you to look at the inside bollard. At least you have this bollard here for what is otherwise a blind uphill corner. Just make sure you use that bollard and you reference it lap to lap. And it's just going to take practice to get consistent with the braking point for this corner. I think that's really important. Don't brake too aggressively. If you brake really hard and aggressively here, you'll upset the car. So somewhere between a really soft brake for the second corner and something a little bit harder. You can see I got to maybe 30% brake pressure, but not for very long. It's just a kind of a dab on the brakes, quite gentle, not to upset the car. Down to third gear. And it's largely about opening up the entry, so waiting to turn in. Trying to be straight as well. When I hit the brakes, you can see in the bottom left, I straighten up the steering just for a fraction so I can get a little bit more brake pressure on and not upset the car. A little bit of a straighter car just as we brake, then start turning into the corner again. Pick up the throttle early, again use the curb to hook it round, and then run out all the way up to the sausage curb on the right here. And again, it's a similar technique to the previous two corners, where you just have to kind of get the car going the other direction after you come out of the exit, just to help open up the next corner that's coming up, because it's just this constant progressive turning. So over to the left, you won't be able to go all the way over to the left in time. Like, I like to go out to, say, a car width away from the curbing on the left-hand side, and then point the car in. And I think a good guide at Fuji is always these rubber lines, these slightly darker bits of the track. They kind of guide you as to where the grip's going to be and where you roughly want to put your car if you're inexperienced with the circuit. And again, looking around all the way to the right-hand side, we don't have a bollard here, but the curbing's a little bit easier to see on this one. And for this last corner, it has got a really long exit. So yes, of course, the exit's really important, and we can be quite aggressive on the exit curbing. However, I find here generally what can go wrong is we over brake. Quite often people over slow, or they just brake too aggressively, upset the car, have a bit of a moment, then run wide into the corner, or we're just way too slow at the apex. So try and avoid those things into this corner. Try and brake maybe a tiny bit on the earlier side and a bit softer, and just really keep the car settled as we turn uphill to the right. And that should help us be able to get a nice, quick, early throttle pickup. Using the curb again to help turn the car, and just kind of push out as much as you can up to the sausage curbing. And all you got to do to the line is then keep the wheels straight and keep your foot flat to the ground. But that is a lap at Fuji. Thanks for watching today's lap guide video. If you've got any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. And you can also check out the Coach Dave Academy Discord as well in the video description. See you next time.